It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports? We do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our After Thanksgiving Great Sports Weekend podcast, Hacksaw's Headlines. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host, John Riley. We hope you had a great Thanksgiving. We have an unbelievable Friday show for you leading up to the start of this great sports weekend. Our podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations in San Diego to serve you. You've got projects you're thinking of doing in December or maybe in 2025. You will need materials. You want ideas. They'll be glad to help you. DIXIELINE Lumber. John Riley, good afternoon. Left hand says, a lot of baseball to talk about. Right hand says, damn, you better not miss the games in college football and the NFL on Sunday. What a great sports weekend. Hope you had a nice Thanksgiving.
I had a great Thanksgiving. Hopefully you and your family had a good one too. What was your turkey like?
Gone. I ate it. I ate a lot. I went into a food coma on Thanksgiving afternoon, and we're back here Friday, ripping and roaring, ready to go.
Hardest working man in sports journalism.
Eve took a couple hours off, almost passed out because I had so much turkey and dressing and pumpkin pie, but we are back at it. Hey, listen, couple of business items. If you like sports, I invite you to check my website. I write on it every day of the week. It's there first thing in the morning, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. On the front page of the website, there's a big orange box. Fill it out. Get on our email list because we send bonus stuff out to everybody that's part of Hacksaw's Insiders Group. You're on social media. Everybody's on social media except my dog. I want you to become a follower of me on X, on Twitter. Just go to my handle at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button because I put a lot of stuff up on X on a day in, day out, nighttime basis. A couple of other reminders. Want you to share. Tell everybody that's in your address book what we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. and subscribe. Therefore, when we put things up on the YouTube channel, you will also get the alerts to that. So we're going a lot of different directions. We did a lot of stuff on social media, and we just joined a new social media or 2 platform as part of Thanksgiving holiday, right?
Yeah, we're on Blue Sky and on Rumble now.
We're everywhere, including TikTok in China. One other item. When we're done, you're taking over this podcast. We did this the first week we launched. Said, we don't know how this is going to work. Yeah, this has worked really well. It's called Fans Forum.
Fans Forum. I mean, guys were piling in already. David, Dodger fan, has got a lot to say about deferrals. We got Ray piling in with some more baseball talk, Javi. So if you've got a question or comment in the world of sports, drop your take in the live chat on X, Facebook, or YouTube. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum.
Okay, a lot of topics on the table. John, where do you want to start?
Well, we have to start with the big news up at Dodger Stadium. Blake Snell.
In the middle of the night. That's a nice headline. The Dodgers, in the middle of the night, out of nowhere, signed Blake Snell. Now, they had chased him down at the end of last offseason, but they were a little bit late getting in the negotiations. Blake Snell, the ex-Padre, ex-Tampa Bay ace, wound up going to the Giants, and what turned out to be a one-year rental. He opted out, winds up at Dodger Stadium. I was surprised it happened in Los Angeles, because I kept hearing he was going to the Red Sox. I kept hearing the Mets were really intrigued. But what did they get? And that's the big question. Great headline. Did they get an ace? Yeah, I think they did. Did they get an insurance policy? Yeah, I think they did too. You know, you buy an insurance policy on anything, pretty expensive. This is an expensive insurance policy for the Dodgers, $36 million per year over the next 5 seasons. They get in an ace? Yeah, 76-58. Career ERA of 3.19. 2 Cy Youngs, no hitter, all-star. But they're also getting a guy that's had 4 straight bad first halves of the season. There's not a lot of consistency to his game. You know, the first half of last season, after he signed late with the Giants, he had an ERA of 9.21, and then he got hurt. But he came off the DL, and his ERA in the last 14 starts was 1.23. Wow.
Wow.
He kept reinventing himself. But you're also getting a guy that only goes 5 innings. He does wear out your bullpen. That's all he does because he throws a lot of pitches, he walks a lot of guys, and he gives up home runs. Now, this is a guy that's got 1,300 strikeouts and just a shade over 1,000 innings. So they really got themselves a front of the rotation guy. I think it's a great acquisition. Dodgers have a tremendous history working with their pitchers, solving whatever mechanical flaws they have. And this guy does get out of sync. So I think they got an ace, but they also got an insurance policy. And we're going to talk about that as the second topic on the table because the Dodgers right now still have a history of a lot of guys with injuries in that pitching staff. Were you shocked? Are you going to boo? You're not going to spit on him.
No.
What'd you think about Blake Snell, Dodger Blue?
I like Blake Snell, the dude. I mean, I just like him and his personality, and I like the way he pitches, even though it can be frustrating at times. But I'm happy for him. I mean, he landed, obviously, with the World Series champs. He doesn't have to be the number one. There's a lot of other number ones there. And if he gets off to a slow start, you know, there's other guys that can carry the load. And he signed super early. He didn't wait till the last minute like last year, which I think screwed him up.
I like the acquisition. I'll tell you, half the world thinks it's a great acquisition. The other half of the world is pissed because it's the Dodgers, the big money Dodgers. The Dodgers with the rings on their finger.
I think 80% of the world is pissed.
So that's where we are. So I'll just ask you, because the Fans Forum chat box is open, is he an ace or is he strictly an insurance policy? Are you shocked the Dodgers did this? Does he make a huge difference for Dodger baseball? So that leads into the second topic on the table as it relates to the Dodgers, John.
Look at that big board. All those names. Is this their pitching staff?
On paper, this pitching staff of the Los Angeles Dodgers looks unbelievable. But on the disabled list, a lot of those names appeared this past year, and I still think there are question marks. Okay, on the left side, that is the Dodger potential starting rotation on paper. Snell, Glasnow, but he has a history of forearm and elbow problems and broke down the back half of last season. YAMAMOTO, who missed 3 months, but boy, he was good either side of that. The legend that is OHTANI, now he's coming off left labrum surgery, not going to be ready to pitch till June, but remember he's had 2 elbow surgeries. Bobby Miller, once promising right-hander out of the farm system, missed 3 months, shoulder miseries, never really got himself back in gear. Dustin May has had 2 elbow surgeries, and he had a throat operation while he was at Oklahoma City. We don't know if he can be what he was before he went down. And Tony Gonsolin missed last season, forearm surgery and knee surgery. So every one of those guys on the left column with an asterisk has got injury issues with them. So that might be 7 potential starters. But John, 5 of those guys have real physical issues you got to pay attention to. On the right side, those are the guys that are still yet to sign. I'm a bit surprised they've not made a move on Jack Flaherty. Walker Buehler's not been offered a new contract. He was in New York and has met with Atlanta. Now I hear Boston's interested in Buehler. Clayton Kershaw opted out to give them budget space. Kershaw will come back, but in what role? Remember, he's coming off 2 surgeries. Joe Kelly's not been offered a contract. He had all types of shoulder and forearm problems. And then the wild card is Roki Sasaki of Japan, who many people think they have an inside track to get him. And boy, he could add a lot if he winds up at Dodger Stadium. So there's an awful lot here. Great staff, but great injury history. So John, give me a reaction. What do you read into that full board?
That full board is unbelievable. I mean, all those names. I mean, look at this list. I mean, that's on the left side, you got 7 guys, but you know, you're talking about Miller and May, Gonsolin all coming off injuries. I made a list. There's a few other guys that I think are sort of on the list. Some of them have injuries, but it's Grove and Stone and Sheehan, right? Are any of those guys going to be back next year?
Sheehan maybe, but he's got to prove coming off his surgery. And Stone is gone for the year with shoulder surgery. And Grove is a young guy who's not shown consistency at the major league level. So, I mean, if you wanted to throw those names, that'd give them 10 potential starters. But couple of those guys have asterisks next to them too. So, I mean, it's a hell of a staff if it's healthy. If it's healthy.
If it's healthy. And, you have Joe Kelly on here. He's a reliever, though. But, I was just thinking of other relievers that are on their staff, like Blake Trinan. That guy's hella good.
And Evan Phillip, et cetera. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there may be an awful lot of riches, but there's an awful lot of people that have been hurt, too.
Yeah. Wow. The rich get richer, man.
Absolutely amazing. So, what do you think about the Dodger rotation? On paper, that looks pretty impressive.
It does. I mean, I think, you figure Snell, Glasnow, Yamamoto should all be healthy to start the year, right?
Mm-hmm. OHTANI will be ready to pitch June 1, they believe. But again, he's coming off second elbow surgery.
And GONSOLIN, you said, is ready to go.
And May, they say, is ready to go. But we got history there.
Now, for the sake of argument, let's assume all these guys play to their potential. Are they as good as the Braves with Glavine and Smoltz and Maddox?
Deeper.
Yeah.
Those three starters in Atlanta are Hall of Fame type starters, but this is a much deeper staff. But those three guys in Atlanta, they didn't have the surgical history that those Dodger pitchers have.
Oh, yeah. Well, because Maddox threw 89 miles an hour and got guys out.
Okay, so you're a Dodger fan. You're a baseball fan. You like that roster? You like that rotation? Your comments to my comments. And what would you do? If I'm the Padres and I got to face the fact Snell's up there now, call Jack Flaherty. Call Walker Buehler. Get one of those guys into San Diego. If I'm the Angels, you signed 6 guys in the offseason. Angels are the only pitching staff I know of 5-man rotation of number 4 starters. That's all they have. They have no ace.
That's exactly right.
Go get Flaherty and go get Buehler. Make a statement.
Mm-hmm.
That would sure change everything as it relates to the Angels. Okay, we got free agency to talk about.
Yeah, look at these names. Yankees, is there an update on Soto?
Let me give you the updates as we're going towards the winter baseball meetings a week from now. The Yankees have re-upped their offer to Juan Soto. I was told by one of the Yankee beat writers the offer is $41 million, which pays him more average per year than Aaron Judge got. I was also told the Yankees have conceded to the request, and they're going to put opt-out clauses in the contract after the 5th year, and after the 6th year, after the 7th year. So if Soto wants to test free agency at age 31, he could always opt out after the 5th year. So to me, it looks like Soto is going to stay with the Yankees. We don't know that the Mets have upped their offer yet. I don't think the Dodgers are in the running. I don't think Toronto, although they're trying really hard to flash the fact we got Guerrero, we got Bichette, we got a good farm system. I just don't see Soto going to Toronto. I got to believe it's going to be the Yankees. Second one, White Sox. They have trade offers standing from the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Orioles. Whole pile of young players, some cases young top pitching. White Sox want a 3-for-1 or a 4-for-1 deal for Garrett Crochet. That deal may come down during the winter baseball meetings. Padres are not mentioned as a finalist, which kind of surprises me, but maybe the Padres don't have the resources, or maybe the Padres are saying, no, we're not giving you Ethan Salas, and we're not giving up Leonardo DeVries, and they don't have much else in the farm system. So Padres don't seem to be a finalist at this point for Garrett Crochet. Third team of the Astros. They've said they're going to spend. Well, if they're going to spend, how come they don't have Alex Bregman signed already? And if they lose Bregman, it looks like that's a shred of the franchise that used to be really, really good. They're going to need bats if Bregman leaves. They're going to need arms to go with a battered pitching staff. Fourth one is Milwaukee. Bregman hasn't signed because Bregman's now got an offer from the Milwaukee Brewers to go up there. And it's a wild story that the Brewers are now back in the running for the ace of their staff who left to go to Baltimore, Burns.
Oh, nice.
Now, whether or not Burns wants to go back to Milwaukee or Burns is on the open market still, he could be the next free agent pitcher to sign. But Milwaukee's trying to make some things happen. And Toronto, which is desperately trying to find people to put around their 2 stars, they met at the end of the week with Bregman. They're now meeting with Max Fried of Atlanta and Luis Severino of the New York Mets. The Blue Jays are telling people, dropping hints, we're going to sign 2 marquee free agents. They talked to Soto, but I don't know that he's realistic. Maybe Bregman does become realistic. So that's the latest on the baseball free agent front. And John Riley, you owe me an explanation about Soto, what you would do. You tell me what you'd be willing to pay to get Garrett Crochet to Dodger Stadium or to Boston or to Baltimore.
There's a lot of interesting possibilities in every one of these cases. Soto to the Yankees just seems so obvious, unless it's the Mets. I don't think he's going to go anywhere else unless, and Boros always has a surprise team, and that's always a BS tactic. The White Sox is an interesting thing with Crochet. If the Dodgers are in play there, I wonder if they would try to package Luis Robert into a deal. Maybe something like that could be worked out. Who knows?
Yeah, but Luis Roberts got a $15 million payday this year, and you got to sign Crochet. I mean, how much more salary are the Dodgers going to take on?
They got plenty, man. They're busting at the seams. The Milwaukee Brewer one was interesting. Corbin Burns, you said, wasn't he angry with the front office staff with the Brewers because they were like monkeying with his stats?
Yeah, and in arbitration, that kind of insulted him along the way. Why didn't you do this, et cetera, et cetera. So, but at the end of the day, money speaks, people walk. And Milwaukee turned out to be a really good team last year in what was supposed to be rebuild, and they're going to get Christian Yelich back, and they got all the young pitchers that they threw out there that pitched okay. But Burns has got other options. I mean, I am surprised Baltimore doesn't seem really hot to bring him back. So if not there, then Fenway Park. That's what I hear. But there are other clubs. The Cubs were in the running early on, but the Cubs haven't done anything yet. So, yeah, Burns is going to be probably the next arm to go off the free agent list.
Boston's hungry, huh? They want to pile on. The other name was Bregman. And does the cloud or suspicion of the 2017 cheating scandal like still haunt him, or in terms of his perception amongst other teams or the fan bases?
You're the first person I've heard ever mention that. Because you're in grudge mode over that. Still 7 years back.
That was a bunch of crap, And I mean, I'm no Dodger fan, but the Dodgers should have won that World Series. They got screwed.
You're the only person in the world's walking around in grudge mode. That's absolutely amazing. No, I don't think that taints Bregman at all. It taints a whole bunch of their front office people who lost their jobs and can't work in baseball anymore. And it taints Cora and a few other people along the way. So interesting. Baseball free agency. And again, the winter meetings in Dallas start December 8th. So if something's going to happen, we could see fireworks starting before the meetings ever get going.
Didn't you say that Soto wants to sign before the winter meetings?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's all going to go down. And we already have a bunch of early signings already.
Yep, exactly. All things baseball. Feel free if you want to get into the debate. Join us. Fans Forum chat box is open. Let's move on. Next topic on the table, the gridiron.
The gridiron, the NFL. And we're going to be getting a lot of snow this week, and this should be fun.
Oh, I'm terrible when it comes to dates. Like, I couldn't tell you what today's date is. All I know is it's Friday, and I got to do this on Friday. I couldn't tell you what the date is. It's not Super Bowl weekend, is it?
It's getting late, yeah. I mean, I can't believe it's almost December.
That could be a preview of the Super Bowl matchup. We're talking Eagles versus Baltimore Ravens.
Birds.
Sunday. Don't miss this game. Holy cow. You got Baltimore averaging 430 yards per game. You got Philadelphia averaging 389 yards per game. Baltimore's offense, Lamar and Derrick Henry and the wide receivers, the tight ends, they've scored 45 touchdowns this season. Baltimore's offense, 47% third down conversion rate. You can't get them off the field, and then they hurt you. Philadelphia, their defense has given up just 274 yards per game. Boy, is that going to be some matchup. Those big, tough defensive linemen that Philadelphia's drafted 3 years in a row, they're going to stand in there and slug with Derrick Henry. And their blitz package, they're going to be chasing Lamar Jackson all over the field. It's going to be a battle of big plays. And then obviously Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley. Oh, like I said, it's a Super Bowl weekend.
I know it is. It's a preview.
A couple of weeks ago, I thought these might be the Super Bowl teams. Part of me says, gee, it's a shame they're playing in December. We might see them in early February. Oh, this is a can't-miss game. Chargers, Atlanta Falcons. The Chargers were running around the streets of Southern California talking about their number one rated defense. And here on our podcast, they were saying, what the hell? Let me see what you do when you play somebody. Well, somebody was Joe Burrow, who threw for 426 and nearly beat him of the Bengals. And that somebody was Lamar and Derek, and the Ravens punched him in the mouth last weekend. And now the Chargers on a plane going to Atlanta are battered. They were without 6 veteran players in practice this week. A number of them are not going to be able to play, including a whole swath of their linebackers. And they got to go to Atlanta. They got to meet Kirk Cousins. Cousins throws the hell out of the ball, especially at Atlanta. The thing is, I have now huge reservations about the Charger defense. And Atlanta hasn't played a shredded defense all season. There's that Kirk Cousins to win them games. Atlanta's given up 369 yards per game. That's pretty pitiful. So Justin Herbert throwing a ton, Kirk Cousins throwing against a battered secondary. I think that Atlanta Charger game is really going to be a shootout. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. This is interesting. You got Joe Burrow, who's got 34 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions. I mean, Burrow's right arm is carrying everything in Cincinnati. Going against the Pittsburgh defense, got 24 takeaways, 25 sacks, and 33% conversion rate on third downs defensively. This is going to be fun. Now, Cincinnati's problem is they're averaging 354, but they're giving up 355. You know, can Pittsburgh punch Burrow in the mouth and slow him down? That, I think, is going to be a fun game in the AFC North. And, oh, by the way, weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're, all that lake effect snow, it's coming a lot of different places, especially in Buffalo. It's already started. First round of lake effect snow, and those storms just keep blowing in onto the Niagara frontier. You got the Bills have won 6 in a row, and they're going to play a San Francisco team that's just tattered. Bills offense is averaging 384 yards per game, and they're going to play a Niner defense and a Niner team that's got so many injuries. Josh Allen's got 23 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. I don't know who the hell is going to start at quarterback. If Brock Purdy can't start because of the shoulder issue, San Francisco's dead. And I think their playoff hopes are probably gone. But they have to play a really tough Bills defense and have to play the weatherman at the same time. That's really hard. The final marquee game of the Rams versus the Saints. The only phrases I can use here are defense is optional. The Rams have force-fed all these kids that played really well. These kids look like they've hit a wall defensively. They really look fatigued. The Rams are giving up 362 yards a game now, which is a lot. Rams have surrendered 30 touchdowns on defense this season. That's a lot. But that's no problem because New Orleans has given up 390 yards a game. They're not playing a lick of defense. So Matthew Stafford, Derek Carr, they'll just be running and gunning. And I bet they both throw for 350 in the course of this Rams game. And one of them, the loser, is going to be done. And the Rams sure hope it's not them. I just don't know. The Rams kids just look like they're gassed physically and emotionally this late in the NFL season. So, John, that's a sneak preview of the top games. Is it Super Bowl weekend?
Super Bowl weekend. Well, Philly and the Ravens sounds like a potential matchup, but you got to think the Lions are probably a better favorite in the NFC than the Eagles.
But Detroit's got so many injuries. They lost 5 or 6 players on defense yesterday with significant injuries.
Oh,
they're running out of players. They were already down 3 of their top defensive linemen. They lost 2 more yesterday, but they've lost all 3 of their linebackers now. Detroit's in big trouble physically.
Interesting. I wasn't aware about that level of damage.
You got to get out of the house more.
I do. The second one, Chargers Atlanta. You know what I just discovered recently is that former San Diego State Aztec Jesse Matthews is on the Atlanta Falcons now. Mm-hmm. So maybe we're going to get to see him this weekend.
Only if it's a blowout or somebody's hurt. I mean, Atlanta's got good skill people. It's weird. Atlanta plays really well at home. Is it the Mercedes-Benz Dome? I think that's what they call it. They play really well there. Mm-hmm. They don't play well on the road. And Cousins turns the ball over on the road. But this thing is in Dixie. And Justin Herbert, I think he'll throw for a chunk of yards because, like I said, Atlanta's giving up 369 a game. But I have no doubt the Charger defense is in big trouble because of just a lot of nagging injuries here. And I think Kirk Cousins is going to throw for a lot.
I have a question. You enjoy talking about the total number of yards that teams are getting on offense or giving up on defense. And this is good and that's bad. Share with me your opinion of what's good, medium, poor in terms of the ranges of yards given up.
If you're in the low 300s, if you can hold people under 320, that's pretty good. Because that means you're getting pass rush, that means you're getting sacks, that means you're getting off the field on third downs. That's why the Philadelphia number in today's modern day football, giving up only 274 yards a game, is phenomenal.
That is, yeah.
So anything south of 320 is impressive. And if you're under 300 this late in the season, you got yourself a bunch of really good defensive players, AKA Philadelphia. Offensively, yeah, you can put a lot of numbers up throwing the football. Now, if you pound it the way the Eagles and the Ravens are pounding it, that means you're killing defenses and they can't get off the field and you're going to score, even if you have a mediocre passing attack. And Baltimore and Philadelphia don't have mediocrity at quarterback. So you could be averaging 370, but, how do you get there? Is it just chunk plays, or are you just maiming people because you're running the ball, controlling the clock, and hitting touchdown passes? So, yeah, anything in the NFL north of 350 is really good.
And then going back to the Chargers, remember, before the Ravens game, they had the lowest points given up.
Past tense.
Past tense. But what was the number of yards that they were giving up?
I'm trying to think now off the top of my head. Their third down conversion rate was phenomenal before they played the Bengals and then Baltimore. I want to say they were giving up 12 to 13 points per game, but that was against nobody.
Yeah,
that was against backup quarterbacks and frightful, fearful rookie quarterbacks. And the minute they played Burrow, they gave up 27, and then they gave up 30 to Baltimore.
Yeah.
And they got smoked in terms of yardage with chunk plays everywhere. So, like I said, prove yourself. Well, they haven't proven it to me. Should have lost to Cincinnati. Definitely got punched in the mouth by Baltimore. Now it's tough. Now they got to go play Atlanta there, where Cousins plays well. And then on the way home, they got to go play at Arrowhead Stadium against you-know-who, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid.
Tough assignment. I'm looking forward to the Niners-Bills game. I mean, how much snow are they expecting in Buffalo? It's like 4 to 6 feet, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's storm after storm. I mean, if you get blasted one time, no problem to plow the field. The fans going to show up anyhow. Fans don't care. Where's my Genesee beer? But if it's storm after storm, which is what the forecast is, these things start rolling in off the lake. That's constant snow. And if you got 21 inches, we plow it. And then you got 28 inches the next one, and we plow it. Where are you going to put the snow? It's a big issue. And to play in it is so hard.
Well, with NFL games, obviously they'll cancel if there's lightning. But have they ever canceled a game for just too much snow?
I think they probably have delayed. Maybe they delayed a game, but they pretty much let them play. Yeah. Cold weather too. Ice bowl, freeze bowl back in the day. 1980s. Yeah. Oh, it's big weekend in the NFL for a wide variety of reasons. And of course, John's a sadist, so he has to watch Buffalo, San Francisco suffer in a raging blizzard, Niagara Frontier. Hey, we get to halftime. Halftime brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. You got projects, they've got materials. It's the month of December. We're all getting ready for Christmas. But if you're planning for things for 2025, whether it's in home, whether it's in John's man cave or my office, or it's in your living room, or maybe in the bathroom, or maybe new shelving and stuff, cabinets in the kitchen, think DIXIELINE Lumber. When you need ideas for projects, they can also be your best friend. They'll act as your consultant. When it comes to projects for 2025, these are the people in San Diego go do business with, the good people at DIXIELINE Lumber. We are back. Before we start the second half, just a couple of business items. If you like sports, I invite you to check my website. I write on it every day of the week. It's LeeHacksawHamilton.com. It's absolutely free. And You give me 5 minutes, I'll tell you every story there is in the world of sports. Is very easy to read. If you don't care about certain things, no problem. Just bypass that page and go to the next one. You might be a big baseball fan. You might be in the NFL, into college football. You might like hoops. You like hockey. Feel free. Check the website every morning, leehacksawhamilton.com. On the website, there's also an orange box right on the homepage. I want you to join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. You'll get special things we send out on our email list. Want you to share, tell everybody what we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Subscribe. When you subscribe via YouTube, you will then get alerts every time we put something special up on the YouTube channel, because we do more than just the Monday and Thursday podcast for you. Also, if you're on social media, want you to become part of the Twitter All-Star team. Just type in my name and hit the follow button, at Hacksaw1090, at Hacksaw1090, and hit the follow button. And when we're done with all this, after you get all my topics on the table, we're going to sit here and listen to your opinions, because John created this for his friends, all 4 of them, Fans Forum.
You know who's piling in are all the Winnipeg guys. So it's good to see them. So thanks for joining us, all you folks out in Winnipeg.
The O Canada Network.
There you go. That's a great name for them all. So, but this is your chance. If you got a question or comment in the world of sports for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, just drop your take in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved.
Okay, we move on. Second half of our bonus podcast, post-Thanksgiving holiday get-together, college football.
Rivalry weekend.
This used to mean something. And because of the death of the Pac-12, the amalgamation of the teams from the West Coast that joined the Big Ten, the refugees that wound up in the Big 12, what's happened in the SEC and to the ACC, rivalry weekend just is not the same anymore. I mean, when was the last time in humanity Ohio State, Michigan didn't have much bearing and meaning? People go crazy, and I worked in the Midwest. I covered that game in the Horseshoe. I went to Ann Arbor. I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. It's just not the same. Michigan obviously is not what Michigan was. They've gone from national championship to 6-5 under the cloud of an NCAA investigation. I'll tell you what, Ryan Day does not like those guys up north. If he has a chance to pour it on and pile it up, he will. But it's weird. It's just not the feel this year, Ohio State versus Michigan. Once upon a time, this was big. Texas A&M. It's not anymore. The Aggies jumped ship years ago to went to the Southeastern Conference, and the rivalry was put on the back burner. Now they're playing because obviously they're both in the SEC, and the whole storyline is Quinn Ewers, the Texas quarterback, who's just grown immensely under Steve Sarkisian, and the feeling is he's going to come out early. He's going to go to the NFL draft, and he may position himself maybe to be one of the top 3 picks in the draft. The next one is a rivalry that goes back into the early 1920s. It's kind of an important game out here in Los Angeles, not because USC is playing it. USC is 6-5, but because Notre Dame comes in with great aspirations to be in the playoffs and be a player. Irish come in at 10-1. They got a transfer quarterback in Riley Leonard, and they've got young running backs, but boy, they play big boy defense. And the big boy defense is going to go against SC's young quarterback, Jaden Mayava, who's won 2 games. The Irish could win this game. Irish could punch them in the mouth. And could you imagine in L.A., Lincoln Riley being 6-6 and going to the Poulon Weed Eater Bowl? You talk about losing prestige. And then there's Boise State, and they played a big-time schedule. They're finishing 11-1. As we were coming on, they were punching Oregon State in the mouth. So Boise State is going to be in the playoffs. Boise State may well have a first-round bye in the playoffs because they're going to be ranked inside the top 10. And Boise State's the real deal. And that's amazing to me because this is a group of 5 conference team. And yet they got big-time players. And they played a big-time schedule starting the first weekend of the season back in September when they almost beat Oregon in Eugene. Boise State's really, really good with Heisman Trophy hopeful running back Ashton Gentry. So, John, we had a couple rivalries that used to be important that aren't anymore. You got some people that aren't playing great football anymore. Go ahead.
Well, rivalry weekend used to be gigantic. And I think it diminished when the conferences had their own championship games.
Sure.
And now it's diminished again because of all the realignment. But are the Huskies playing the Ducks, or UCLA played SC last weekend?
And nobody cared.
What about Cal Stanford? Did those guys play?
Yeah, they played last weekend. The big game, nobody cared.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
I mean,
the thing, because of the death of the Pac-12,
yeah.
a lot of the sparkling things that were special are gone. Arizona State plays Arizona this weekend in the Centennial Cup. That used to be huge. BYU used to play Utah at the end of the season. That's not important anymore. And that game was shoved in the middle of the season. You know, the last game of the season used to be the Civil War, Oregon State. Used to be the Apple Cup, Washington State. It's not there anymore because of mergers and the conferences and teams changing and schedules are so different. Just not the buzz that it used to be.
Well, in Columbus and in Ann Arbor, it's still going to be a big game this weekend.
And Ryan Day is going to run up a damn score. Trust me, he's a hothead. He does not forget stuff, especially anything that Harbaugh and Michigan did to Ohio State. But we've seen some great intersectional battles during the season. You know, Ohio State, Oregon, that was really cool. And some of the others. But man, there's a hole in their heart because some of the marquee great games of the past are gone. Now, granted, next week, Army-Navy. And granted, there are great rivalries. Nobody would know this except dummy me who used to live back there. But Lehigh Lafayette is a big game. That's small college football.
Yeah.
So there are some rivalries, but the marquee ones, it just didn't carry the electricity it used to.
They don't. Just two quick questions. When you were at Ohio, who was Ohio's number one rival?
You want me to say anything nice about Miami of Ohio?
Okay, so that's who it was.
Oh, that's exactly.
Yeah.
And they're going to play next week in the Mid-American Conference Championship game. It's called the Battle of the Bricks.
The Battle of the Bricks.
Well, but they both have Georgian-style architecture on their campus with brick buildings and all that. And students,
There you go.
Yeah, and the riots, the students would rip up the bricks and throw them at the cops.
How it sounds like Kent State or something going on. But how close together are those two schools?
Well, Miami of Ohio is in Southwest Ohio. It's west of Cincinnati and Dayton.
And then
And
Ohio's
Athens.
southeast, right?
And Athens is in Southeast, right on the border of Appalachia.
Okay, there you go. Okay, but the other question was the championship games, those are next weekend, right?
Yes.
Okay, here we
For
go.
the smaller conferences.
Okay. Oh, the big conferences are like a week after that?
Could be. I'm not sure of the Big Ten or, you know, the Big 12 or the SEC. They may be next week. I have to look at the calendar. You're asking me stuff about dates. I don't know what today's date is.
Well, you know everything in the world of sports, but you don't know your calendar.
I don't even know my wedding anniversary, my wife's birthday. I've just forgotten all that stuff. But I'll just say one thing about rivalries. Yes, I was the one that did it. I have a bunch of friends live out here who went to Miami of Ohio. And we converse back and forth on social media and phone calls, and we give each other a lot of heat and all that, and we bet, etc. So my fraternity at Ohio U, leading to the Miami of Ohio rivalry game, Battle of the Bricks, hung this huge banner out the fraternity window. And it had the Bobcats logo, and it had it was Miami of Ohio Redskins, an Indian head logo.
Mm-hmm.
And across the front, they had the word Muck Miami. We probably got put on probation.
Back in the good old days.
Back there's got Phi Delta Theta guys drank a lot of beer.
But Miami isn't the what was you say, the Redskins?
It was the Redskins, now the Red Hawks.
Red Hawks. Okay.
Actually, it's historically known as the cradle of coaches. Paul Brown came from there. Woody Hayes came from there. Bo Schembechler came from there. There are a lot of great coaches that were at Miami of Ohio.
You know, this is just a crazy tangent. Redskins, I'm hearing chirping that they're talking about bringing that logo back for the Washington Redskins. Is that real?
Yeah, they're actually talking about bringing the name back. And evidently, the new ownership, led by Josh Harris, has met with Indian Council people about, would you be offended? Most people said, no, we would not be offended, from the different Indian reservations.
Okay.
So, Commanders may go away. Washington Redskins, hail to the Redskins, the band and all that, might come back.
Interesting. Yeah, that ought to ruffle a few feathers.
Okay, that's all things college football. You upset about rivalries? Feel free to jump on board. Last topic on the table before I get to Fans Forum.
Yeah, we got the sports wire here and big news in Chicago.
They fired Matt Eberfluss, the coach, this morning. What's really weird is he did his post-game press conference last night. He did his after-game day after press conference today. And within the hour, they had another press conference announcing he was gone. Had to happen. When you're 14-32 as head coach, when the organization is giving you every player you wanted in free agency or via trade, when you have the high draft pick and the kid doesn't make enough progress, and you fired both the offensive coordinators that you yourself hired, you can't stay with Matt Eberflus. And then you had the, quote, cluster F that happened at the end of that Chicago Bears Thanksgiving Day game. They need somebody with offensive credentials to come in to work with the kid, Caleb Williams. But that was a disaster, what happened at the end of that Bears game when they got up off the mat and came back and nearly beat the Detroit Lions, only to screw it up on the final drive and final possession. So he is gone. That's the third head coach that's lost his job in the season. In Minnesota, this was a bit of a surprise. They're having a great season. This relationship, Kevin O'Donnell and Sam Darnold, the quarterback, has worked really well. O'Connell he's able to speak Darnold's language, and he's resurrected his career to the point that Sam's going to be probably the comeback player of the year. He might not have a job, though, because Minnesota just signed Daniel Jones, who just got released, bought out, put on the street corner by the New York Football Giants. And Jones chose Minnesota over other places where he could actually go and play immediately. He's going to learn the system. He'll be the backup. He'll be the insurance in case anything happens. But looking down road, I don't know. They can't keep all these guys. So you got Darnold, who's on a one-year contract. You got Daniel Jones, who could effectively be the quarterback of the future or be a free agent. And you got J.J. McCarthy, who's recovering from the knee surgery. They spent a first-round draft pick. It's a fascinating thing as to why Daniel Jones chose that place, but it'd be interesting there. Next topic on the table, all things National Hockey League. Paul Bissonnette, NHL tough guy, turned broadcaster, really become a fabulous personality covering NHL games in studio for TNT. He was the restaurant in Scottsdale. He lives there. 6 guys were drunk, got in an argument, started to hassle the manager of the restaurant.
What?
So Paul interceded, tried to get these guys to stop it. They took the thing outside. The guy got jumped by 6 drunks, beat the crap out of him.
Whoa.
They're messing with the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Paul Bissonnette was a tough guy as an NHL winger. So anyhow, the cops came. They arrested all 6 of the guys. Bissonnette was back on TV this weekend. Look, black eyes and all. But you messed with the wrong guy.
Yeah.
And I don't think they knew who the hell he was.
Right.
And he was just trying to play peacemaker. All the patrons in the restaurant said, no, this guy was asking these people to leave. They don't want you here. And then he walked outside and he got jumped. Amazing, amazing story. And the last topic on the table, LIV Golf, Saudi Arabia, blood money. Took 35 guys from the PGA Tour 3 years ago. And the LIV has made no impact globally at all on the golf world, except it's made a lot of guys like Phil Mickelson and Dustin Johnson, those guys, really rich. They terminated Greg Norman, the CEO. He's out. He was the point man that lured all these guys with the Saudi checkbook. And he was the one that I think was really blocking the success of these merger negotiations between the PGA and the LIV. And at the end of the day, yeah, we've developed the next group of stars on the PGA Tour, but the TV ratings for both tours have absolutely gone into the gutter. And they still don't have this merger done because now there's investigations, there's an antitrust violation, etc. But Greg Norman will not be the point man representing the LIV, so maybe this thing will move forward. So, John, da Bears, not very good.
No.
Like the Vikings. Just make sure when you're arguing with somebody in a bar, it's not an NHL tough guy, and talk about Greg Norman.
Well, the Greg Norman firing makes sense because they haven't been able to get the thing solved. So you got to get new leadership that can kind of work a deal. The NHL story is kind of funny in a way, but yeah, you don't mess with, I think of other like tough guys like Marty McSorley, and
Sure.
those are guys you don't want to piss off.
These guys obviously weren't hockey fans. They're in Scottsdale, Arizona, where there's no longer an NHL team, but I know this guy. I know of him. I've seen his work on TV is really funny. It's hilarious. He speaks like a freaking cop, like a tough guy. and he's always enunciating, well, if it were me in the corner, I'd do this to that guy who hit my star. That's who he is.
See, it's like the Charles Barkley of hockey.
Exactly.
You know, like he'll just speak his mind and you get the insight to what's really going on in their head when they're on the court or on the ice. So that's great. I mean, the Vikings thing, my suspicion is that Daniel Jones wanted to go somewhere that he can maybe get a ring. But at the same time, I worry, is Sam Darnold going to be looking over his shoulder?
I don't think so, because you can't take a guy off the street and give him a 200-page playbook and digest it and be ready to play on Sunday. That's not going to happen. So, but Jones will go through a learning curve with Kevin O'Connell, and Jones has never played with a good team around him. I mean, his career was so sidetracked by injuries and monstrous sacks. You know, I think I quoted you last week. Daniel Jones started 70 games with the New York Giants. He was 24-44, I think, as a starter. And he threw 70 touchdowns in 70 games. I think he turned it over 50 sometimes, took 208 sacks. It was just a bad organization, bad team. And then, by the way, they let Saquon Barkley go across the state line to the Philadelphia Eagles in the division. So he's in a much better place. There'll be a learning curve there. And we'll just see whether he stays, whether Darnold stays. We don't know about J.J. McCarthy coming back from this major meniscus tear surgery. So somebody's going to be a starter. One of the other guys will probably leave.
Sounds like the 49ers a few years ago when they had Trey Lance and Jimmy G. But still, McCarthy is going to be the guy. I mean, once he's healthy, right?
Healthy and goes through the learning curve.
Okay.
That's different. I mean, when you're on the field as a raw rookie, yes, Caleb Williams. Yes, Jaden Daniels. Big storyline in Washington this week. After the Redskins have lost 3 in a row.
The Redskins?
I mean, yes, the Cleveland Indians, too.
Yeah. The Commanders.
Jaden Daniels said he admitted, I've hit a wall. This is a long season.
Yeah.
And his play has started to come down a notch or two, and he was carrying them. So when you talk about J.J. McCarthy, that's not instant success when you're a raw rookie.
Well, it's like that on all the sports. They play so many more games at the pro level than at the college level. I can see how they would hit a wall because they're young. You know, they don't really. They're probably so emotional and worked up to start the season.
Yeah, your football, you're drafted. You start in OTAs in April and May, and then you go to training camp, and then you play that, and then you do the whole season and that preparation, and you're going to hit a wall somewhere. And so we're getting December 1st, and Jaden Daniels has admitted to Washington, yeah, I've kind of hit a wall. Now, it's interesting because the only rookie whose arrows projected up is playing really well is in Denver, Bo Nix.
Oh, yeah.
And he started slowly. I didn't realize this till this week. He's got 20 touchdowns and only 6 picks. And he's not playing on a great team, but he's gotten progressively better and better and better as we've gone.
Well, you used to always say he's a systems quarterback, but maybe he's a lot more than that.
Well, he's playing for a mad scientist who is doing a good job. Sean Payton's system obviously fits his kid. And he doesn't have a lot of great skilled people around him yet. They're going to fix this and they're going to build it. He's had a remarkable season. He has not hit a wall.
Interesting. And Caleb Williams, I want him to be successful. I want the Bears to be relevant again. But even Caleb Williams didn't look sharp at times during that game.
And there's panic and the blocking's terrible. And, he's had games where you saw the flashes throw for 333 yards. He had back-to-back 300 games. I said, yeah. But he's also had games where he was 6 for 21 and got sacked 9 times. So he's not in a good situation with a team around him at this point. And obviously there's coaching issues because they fired 2 coordinators now. Chicago is a mess. And by the way, winter's coming to Chicago too. So
winter is coming. It's like this, like Game of Thrones. But can't remember what I was going to say. Let's keep moving.
Okay. It is time for this. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. You got projects, they've got solutions, they've got materials. They'll be glad to be your best friend, be your consultant, and give you ideas. Sample what they make available to you at any of the 9 locations in San Diego and the new one up in Orange County and Dana Point, DIXIELINE Lumber. It's time for Fans Forum. We got so many people lined up here with opinions. John, fire away.
Okay, this first one is going to be a bit of a pile on. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so David Ramos is in here. He's talking about the deferred contract to Snell. It's not a big deal. He's saying, look at all these other deferrals. Examples: Bobby Bonilla deferred $5.9 million in 2000. He gets $1.19 million every July 1st. Bobby Bonilla Day from 2011 to 2035. 8% interest clause. David left a few other examples. He said Ken Griffey with the Reds had a big deferral. Manny Ramirez with the Red Sox had a big deferral, and Max Scherzer, when he signed with the Nationals, had payments deferred till 2028.
We're going to fire you as co-host and hire David as our researcher.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Deferrals are not bad. In the modern day money, understand this, because the gross revenue coming in the front door just goes up and up and up every baseball season. If you have minor deferrals like $1 million a year or $5 million a year, you can probably stomach that. But you start talking about deferrals of $10 million per season, and then you do it for multiple players, that bill adds up. Now, baseball is on a huge upbeat right now in terms of gross revenues. Maybe it'll stay there. But the salary structure is tied to the gross revenues, so everybody's making more money in baseball. So they didn't do anything legally. The union signs off on it. It's part of the collective bargaining agreement, how you structure and how you finance. A lot of people don't realize, we mentioned this way back after the OHTANI signing, even though there's deferred money, which means it doesn't economically count against the luxury tax this year, the Dodgers have to set aside a certain percentage every year of the deferred money.
Mm-hmm.
So the OHTANI deferral doesn't kick in until he retires, I guess. But the Dodgers have to set aside, I think it's $5 to $6 million every year from their cash flow that can't be used. So that money's going into an accessory account that OHTANI will then get.
But $5 to $6 million is a hell of a lot less than $70 million,
yes,
which is what the ticket's going to be. You know, speaking for myself, I don't have a problem with these teams doing deferrals. I mean, they're setting themselves up for disaster down the road. But I don't think, you know, it's that, like, to David's point, it's been going on in baseball for decades.
Well, not very often, but it may be the new in thing with these wave of contracts now.
Yeah, well, it's typical of America, man. We want it all now. We want to pay later.
Okay. David, well, I'll save you a seat here at the table.
Yeah,
you can become our chief researcher. Good job. Thanks for joining us on Fans Forum. Next one.
Okay, let's talk a little NHL here from Manny Fran. He says, Kings destroy our Jets. Did anyone notice, Hacksaw? The rink was empty on screen.
Well, again, if it's happening during a holiday weekend, maybe that's got something to do with it. There is still a lot of concern in Winnipeg being such a small regional market, you know, the fan support. But when the Jets had that unbelievable start, you know, at 1 point 15-1, now they kind of hit a bump in the road. Winnipeg was drawing some pretty good crowds, north of 13,000. I don't know what Winnipeg is going to do in terms of corporate support, because I think there's limitations as to what kind of corporate support. But it's a good product. I say support the product. I'd never like to see the day that we'd see them lose the franchise for a second time. You know, that's how the Arizona Coyotes came to be, as the Winnipeg Jets had to move. So hopefully they'll find a way, they'll solve it. But it is a tough situation. Ottawa is a bit of a tough situation, like Winnipeg, small Canadian market. So we'll see what transpires going forward. But the Jets, pretty good hockey team right now, even though it's a bit of a bump on the road after the great start.
Hockey's just starting to roll, man. I mean, like you say, everything's going on right now.
Yeah.
Great time in sports.
All right. Thanks for joining us on the O Canada Network.
Okay. From the O Canada Network, Bart is here. He says, hello from Winnipeg, Hacksaw. Thanks for joining WST every week. Look forward to your segment.
Well, they're good guys. I've known them a long, long time. I do NFL Notebook segments in Toronto, in Winnipeg. I've done some in Edmonton and Vancouver. So I do a lot of stuff on Sports Talk Radio north of the border, just NFL Notebook stuff, etc. It was funny. I was on an Edmonton podcast this past week, and their guys, we started talking about the weather for some reason, and they have brutally cold weather. I mean, it is Alaska type winter up in Edmonton, which is in northern Alberta, John. And he was trying to tell me what the temperature was in Fahrenheit. And I said, well, what is that in Celsius? No, it was reverse. He tried to tell me in Celsius. I said, figure it out in Fahrenheit. So he's sitting there trying to figure it out. I said, make sure you carry the one over here. Don't do it by long division. Anyhow, so I do NFL segments a lot of different places.
Yeah. Well, It's interesting though. We're still hanging on to this old imperial measurement system with yards and 90 feet on the bases and everything else. I'm surprised at those kinds of. Well, it's American sports, so it's not necessarily an international standard.
Don't mess with what we have that works. That's popular. Don't change anything.
Well, do you think that the it should be the 100-yard dash in the Olympics, or we go with the meters?
Well, against my objections, it turned out to be 110 meters. You know, against my objection, the 1 mile, which I used to run, became 1,500 meters. So anyhow, we move on.
We move on. Okay, let's go here to Kenny's water bottle. He says, "Come on, in Canada, folks would laugh if anyone even hinted at the possibility of canceling a football game over snow."
Yeah, it's interesting because they play in all types of weather. Notable, I mean, this time of the year, they just played the Canadian Football League Grey Cup Championship game a week ago. And the Toronto Argonauts, with the backup quarterback, beat Winnipeg and their star quarterback who got hurt. But they play the end of the season. I mean, winter's there in November. And they played the CFL in snow, and they played the Grey Cup game in unbelievable fog. And I told the story last week. My first introduction as a very young sports fan was on TV watching a CFL game that was in the Canadian Football League Grey Cup. And I think it was the Hamilton Ticats against somebody from out west. And the reason I bring this up is the quarterback that I first saw in the CFL passed away today. His name was Joe Zuger. Star quarterback, Hamilton Ticats, two-way player, quarterback, and safety. He played at Arizona State. Anyhow, he had a great career in Canada. Then he became the general manager. Then he went to work at the league office. Joe Zuger just passed away. But that was the first Canadian Football League game I ever saw, and I was fascinated not by just 3 downs and a 110-yard field, as they were trying to explain it to us Americans. They played the game in a freaking fog. You could not see anything. And Joe Zuger's throwing passes, and we didn't know if it was completed.
How could he see?
Yeah, he couldn't see either. Well, maybe down on field level you could see, but so that was my introduction to the Canadian Football League. But Joe Zuger, nice guy, passed away today.
Tough one there. But, I just made a list here of some of the NFL games that were in the snow that I remembered. One was the Tuck game, with Tom Brady against the Raiders. Then there was the Leon Lett game. I think that might have been a Thanksgiving Day game.
Yeah, scoop the ball and drop the ball. And
yeah, it was all kinds of goofy stuff there in the snow. And then there was another one where the Dolphins kicker, they got him to sweep the field.
Yeah, it was a New England game.
Okay.
And that led to a rule change. They brought a snowblower on, so I think it was a New England kicker, Jonathan Smith, could kick a field goal. And at that point, there was no rule. All of a sudden, a guy with a little snowblower comes in, and they clean off where they're going to spot the ball. Nobody said anything about it. And then next thing you know, that winter, they put a rule and you can't tamper with the field.
Well, that was Belichick doing that, right? I mean,
no, this is pre-Belichick.
Oh, it's before them.
Way back.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, of course, there was an Eagles, you brought it up a week ago. I think it was an Eagles-Bear playoff game in the fog. And I think that was a Randall Cunningham or maybe Donovan McNabb era with the Philadelphia Eagles.
And that was wild. I remember that one. And you just watching on TV, you couldn't see anything.
No. And when I was a kid growing up, I remember a New York football giant Washington Redskins game in a raging blizzard. And this had to be early 1960s. And Sonny Jurgensen was the quarterback, and he was throwing balls where it looked like bricks because he couldn't hold it. And I think it wound up being, I don't know, a touchdown, a field goal, and that was all scored. I broadcast one game in a raging blizzard in Denver. Actually, it was the first year of the Chargers and the Redskins. Raging blizzard. And I'll never forget Pat Curran and Jim Laslovic, who both played in the NFL for a long time. I asked him, what's the key to this? And Pat, in his blunt say, just freaking score the first touchdown of the game, you're going to win. And Denver guy took a short punt back in a raging blizzard for a touchdown. The Broncos won 7-0. Final game of the 1987 season. And Pat knew because Pat had played all those games.
That's just got to be so tough. I just imagine being so cold and then getting hit. I mean, that's got to be really tough. Yeah, so many just classic games. So even during the Lions game last night, if I recall, they were showing excerpts from when they played at Tiger Stadium
in the
mud. And I remember that with the NFL. I think that goes back to Kezar Stadium for me with San Francisco.
And my broadcast partner on the Chargers game, linebacker Jim Laslovic, he played for Detroit, came out of Penn State, played there, played Green Bay, played with the Chargers. He lost a shoe in the mud. He couldn't find it. And again, this was at, I think it was called Briggs Stadium, which was Tiger Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a quagmire. So, I mean, there's some great old videos of weather games in the NFL. But you're a sadist. You just can't wait for Buffalo, San Francisco in the blizzard.
Well, it's so funny how the NFL has changed, because you always think of the tough guys, the 3 yards on a cloud of dust and the snow. And now everyone's in these posh, like Las Vegas hotels, like the AT&T in Dallas and SoFi here in LA.
Okay, we move on. Thanks for the input.
Okay, let's go here to the O-Siders. And he says, Aztec fast. It'll be Aztec last if we lose to Air Force. How long of a leash in years will Sean Lewis have? Also, your prediction for the game tomorrow. Thanks, Hacksaw.
I gauge how successful a coach is does his team make progress? I'll give you a prime example in the NFL. The Steelers started the season, John, with 2 rental quarterbacks and not much talent. And the Steelers are in first place. Mike Tomlin, better and better and better as they go.
Mm-hmm.
So I gauge a new coach. Have you made enough progress going forward? Sean Lewis, no. They've made no progress at all. In fact, they've regressed. They're 3-8, and they've lost all these games in a row, 5 games in a row. They haven't beaten anybody all season. Now, he's been beset by a lot of injuries, freshman quarterback, awful lot of new faces on the roster. So I don't think he's had any success. I wrote a column this morning. It's on my website. If you're an Aztec fan, tell all your friends to go to my website and read it. Great expectation, greater disappointment. I like the guy, smart guy. He's got to keep this roster intact. He can't have 42 guys go back into the transfer portal like who jumped ship last year. He's got to get the right guys. He's got to fix his offensive line, which was ravaged by injuries, which has really impacted them. So they made no progress at all. He better not be sitting here at 4-8 a year from today, because then people are going to start to raise questions about, yeah, this guy has all these great X's and O's in his 200-page playbook and it doesn't work. So I would hope that next season will be a growth season. If he keeps these kids here, they got a year's experience under the belt, keep that kid quarterback, get more players in here, and then see. But the thing that scares me, they're going to the Pac-12 a year from now. They don't look like a Pac-12 team. You kidding me? They're getting their ass kicked in the Mountain West Conference by everybody.
Yeah.
So I'm really worried about suddenly they're going to be in the Pac-12. They might be a doormat. So we'll just see if Sean Lewis can get more players here. Give him another year. But boy, a year from today, I better not be talking about a 4-8 team.
Well, let's talk about this, because obviously Sean Lewis comes in. The program is at ground zero. Everything was blown up. The roster, everybody left with the exception of a few guys. New recruits, new system, new everything.
And then he had 10 different starting offensive linemen who had never played together. 10.
Yeah. So how much of this do you blame on Sean Lewis as opposed to just being the circumstances? And given that what's going on with the transfer portal and everything else, will the circumstances ever change to give Sean Lewis an opportunity to succeed?
Well, it's his team, his responsibility, his playbook.
Right.
If it doesn't fit, then change the playbook. Make it match what you got on the roster. But he can't control the injuries. So I only blame him to a degree. He just needs to keep his players intact, go get the next round of recruits and transfers that come in, and then build on it. Continuity is hugely important. Brady Hoke was 4-8 his first year when he replaced Chuck Long, and that was a freaking disaster.
Chuck.
But they got progressively better and better.
They did.
Rocky Long, better and better, to the point there was a higher standard. Well, Sean Lewis has not met that standard at all, but there's so many variables there that cause this mess to happen. This is the first, I swear to you, this is the first Aztec fans forum contribution we've had maybe since early in the season, which is another warning sign, blinking light, like town doesn't care. That's sad.
I got an Aztec story to share with you. I didn't tell you this, is that, obviously the fans that watch the podcast, and thank you for everybody for watching and listening. Some of them, you're the star, this is your show, but sometimes they find me on social media as your wingman. And I got contacted by a guy, I think his name was Michael, and longtime Aztecs season ticket holder, going back to the 1990s and the WAC days. And he was saying, come on, guys, you got to quit bagging on this program. This is a good program. They can build this. You're saying that the tickets are too expensive. No, you can get into that stadium for $30-$35 for some of the nosebleed seats. It's still a good product, or a good, not really a product, but it's a good opportunity for San Diego.
Yep.
So quit sandbagging these guys and give them credit, give them some hope.
I had a lot of hope when the season started because I thought Sean Lewis is a real bright light. Hasn't worked out for a wide variety of reasons. Snapdragon's kind of cool. I do think the prices are way too expensive. But that's for them to admit we made a mistake and fix it, sort it out. But blows my mind is this is an NFL city, and all these fans were displaced like we all were when we all got screwed by Spanos and the Chargers. And those fans never put their arms around Brady Hoke's team when they were winning. And now they've totally disappeared because they're losing.
It's San Diego, man. This is a tough sports market, man. It's tough.
Now, good point. Give them an opportunity. It is a great experience, but I wish they'd changed the ticket prices structure. And I just hope Sean Lewis can weather the storm. And bright guy, I think he will, because he did at Kent State, and Kent State was horrible. And since he left, Kent State was just finished 0-12. They got beaten in their final game last night. They were not competitive at all. And he left. He left 2 years ago, and they've just been deplorable. So this guy has a track record of X's and O's success, which should lead to success watching games. But at this point, they look so far away from being a legitimate Pac-12 team. I'm not begging them. I'm just giving you the facts and figures and what I see.
Tell it like it is.
According to Howard Cosell.
Howard Cosell. Yeah. Okay. Let's go back. Kenny has some insight here on this whole Biz situation in Scottsdale. It's a two-parter. And he says, all 6 guys look worse in the police pics than Biz, who had a couple of scratches on his head. If one guy asks a group if they like to step outside, should probably wonder if that guy can fight.
Well, they weren't hockey fans.
Okay. Well, then he goes on to say, he says, FYI, it was 7 guys. Cops arrested 6. 1 guy ran off. I'm sure they'll get him. But Biz took on 7 guys himself. Biz came out looking better than all of them. Quick pit stop at the hospital.
Yeah, and I've seen some pictures on social media of all 6 guys. And you're right, yeah, they look like they got a few black eyes along the way. But, Bissonnette he was a policeman on the ice. That's who he was. That's how he played. That's how he talks on TV. So I'm sure this weekend on TNT, it'll be a conversation point of, hey, how did your Thanksgiving holiday go?
I just have a vision in my head of like Chuck Norris, getting like mobbed by 6 guys and he's just taking them all out.
No, it's just absolutely amazing. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Okay, let's go here to Chris. And he says, happy bleeping Thanksgiving, you two. Thankful for you, John, for putting our beloved Mighty Hacksaw back on the air where he belongs.
Yeah, that's right. Blame him. It's his bloody fault that I'm back doing this now. The podcast is exploding. And, we're on every social platform there is right now. So we're just trying to grow to things, but you can help us a lot. We don't have any friends. I have no problem asking for a thumbs up, and I have no problem having you post 5 stars. God, if everybody gave us a 5-star rating on YouTube, do you know how much it would really help us?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the 5 stars, though, by the way, is Apple Podcasts. But people just doing a like or a love, that helps the algorithm because, every social media platform is dependent on engagement. So the more people that like or love or, give us a thumbs up, the better. Let's go here to social media. We got a bunch of other guys here that want to get involved. And let's talk here about the TV or about the hot seat. Yeah, this is one you brought up about which NFL coach is going to be the first to be let go. He says Coach Prime to the NFL, especially the Cowboys, would be a big mistake.
Well, Michael Irvin has been talking for 2 weeks nonstop about Coach Prime coming to Dallas if they hit the eject button on Mike McCarthy. But Jerry Jones said twice this week in different interviews that Mike McCarthy is a Super Bowl winning coach. Mike McCarthy's been plagued by terrible injuries to our defensive side. Then we lost our quarterback. He said, I would not be averse to bringing Mike McCarthy back. So maybe that ends all that conversation of Coach Prime or Belichick or the next bright light offensive coordinator like Dan Lanning in Oregon landing in Dallas. Because Jerry Jones obviously is on the same wavelength with Mike McCarthy and is not blaming Mike McCarthy for the demise of the season just because they got so many guys who were hurt. I mean, their whole defense had 16, I counted going into last night's game, they had 16 major injuries on defense. Nobody survives that. And you saw what Micah Parsons did in this Thanksgiving night game, totally healthy, that makes a huge difference to everybody else. So,
Well, you think like a coach like Prime with all of his personality, does that work better in college than it does in the pros? I think.
I'm sure it works much better at Boulder, Colorado than it would in any National Football League stop.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Coach just got one of the top quarterbacks in the country who decommitted from USC is going to Colorado. And of course, Shadur Sanders, Travis Hunter are filing for the NFL draft after they play in a bowl game. And Colorado is winning today. So Colorado might be on the periphery of actually being in the college playoffs rather than just going to a bowl game. Be fascinating to see who winds up. If Colorado's not in the playoffs, Colorado is a marquee team for bowls. Could you imagine the excitement if Coach Prime brought the Buffaloes here to the Holiday Bowl?
Hey, that'd be all right.
Yeah, because the Holiday Bowl agreement, can be with somebody that used to be in the Pac-12. And so
Interesting.
So we'll see.
Well, I saw the score earlier today. It was 38-0 at one point over Oklahoma State.
Yeah, Shadur Sanders set the all-time passing record at CU today.
Good for him.
He's a really fine player.
And now, he's a third-year player, right?
Yeah, he's going to the draft. So is Travis Hunter. They might be, both of them might be picked in the top 5, I would think.
And Hunter, maybe the Heisman Trophy?
He's in the running. But, you've got him, you got Shadur, you got the Miami quarterback Cam Ward, you got the Boise State running back Ashton Gentry. So it's a wide open Heisman race.
Yeah.
I haven't got my ballot yet.
That's right. You get to vote. I
get to vote, it's going to be complicated. I can't tell you who I'm going to vote for because I don't know who I'm going to vote for, and I can't leak it before.
Yeah.
But there's some really good players, a lot of different track records.
Have you ever been to the New York Athletic Club?
No, I have not. No.
Interesting.
Yeah. I've been to the College Football Hall of Fame, which is really cool. There's so much. They have classes. They admit like 31 guys a year. I say, how do you admit that many? But this college football has been played forever and ever. And the Hall of Fame encompasses not just the big time. It encompasses all the way down to Division III.
Yeah, Canton, right?
Yeah.
Does it all.
Yeah. So it's great. No, the College Football Hall of Fame, Indianapolis, I believe.
But I thought maybe it's the basketball one that's just not NBA exclusive.
Yeah, that's
the one in Springfield.
Right.
Okay, so but the Canton, Ohio Hall of Fame is NFL only?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
All right, we move on. Thanks for the comments.
Okay, let's go here. They're talking about the TV deal, and this got a ton of run on our YouTube segments. This is from Philip. He says, this is long overdue for baseball. He goes, as a Yankee fan, I hope they and the other big market teams are somehow forced to join up. A universal and truly equal package would rule. If baseball could function like football and have parity, it would be the most exciting thing since the addition of the wild card.
The only problem is I just don't know how baseball is going to mandate to the Yankees they have to give up the Yes Network, or the Dodgers, who are making a phenomenal amount of money, $340 million a year for their big regional network, or NESN in Boston, which has been in place for a long time. I just don't know how that the commissioner's office can mandate you got to give this up for the good of the sport. I just don't think that'll happen. But if you do get the other 25 teams, which is what, in all honesty, Rob Manfred's proposal is by 2008, when all of our TV contracts expire, we're going to take control of the streaming of all 25 other teams, and we will form a massive streaming network that can generate a lot of money. Maybe that's a solution. And then they would carve up that piece of the pie and give it to just the 25 teams. They would then negotiate some sort of revenue share from the 5 who have their own regional networks. They would still get money flowing from there into this pot. Baseball has taken a huge tick up in terms of attendance. TV ratings have rocketed. It's fastly becoming a global game. Thank you, Shohei Ohtani. And of course, prior to that, a lot of the Japanese and Korean pitchers who've come here. But now, year by year, there are more stars coming from abroad that are playing. So it's become a really great global game, including everything in Latin America and the Caribbean. So they've got a plan. We'll see if they can work. But all honesty, getting back to what you had to say, Philip, I just don't think you convince the Red Sox to give up the amount of money they're making from NESN, or the Dodgers from the Yankees, Mets, etc.
Yeah, that's a tough ask. But I'm thinking in my head with the Mountain West and Boise State, where imagine if they got the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Dodgers all to agree to join, but you'd have to kind of pay them extra money.
The bigger markets would get a bigger share.
Right. And just like Boise State in the Mountain West. And so, and you can't keep that up for too long. I mean, you'd have to wind that down after like 5 or 7 years.
I just don't think the Yankees are going to give up where they are on SNY.
Yeah. I mean, as from a business perspective, why would you?
And you're a capitalist. How dare you, whatever you're going to bring that up and think about it. Good point, though, Philip. Thanks for being with us.
Okay, let's talk a little Dodgers and Juan Soto. This is from Tyler. Because the Dodgers don't need him. They just gladly driving up the price for the team that ends up securing him. The guy hits for power and average, and that's about it. Nobody's going to the ballpark solely to see Juan Soto and those Padres antics at the plate. The Dodgers need the liability out, or don't need the liability out in right field. He's horrible in that regard.
I think the side story after what just happened with Blake Snell going to Dodger Stadium is, what do they do in the outfield? You know, Teoscar Hernandez had that one-year rental great season, 33 homers, 99 ribbies. He wants 3 years, 90 million. He wants 30 mil per on a multi-year contract. He's not a young pup. Now, my left hand says they really need Teoscar Hernandez in the lineup and in the outfield. But my right hand says, man, that's a volume of money for an older player. Are you going to do that? And how high can their payroll be? I do think they're in the running for Sasaki, but they're going to need an outfielder if Teo goes somewhere else, because Teoscar Hernandez was talking to the Orioles. He's also talking to the Red Sox, who need a right-handed bat at Fenway Park. But there's so many names in the mix. You know, Nolan Arenado is out there. So there's other guys that may impact where Teoscar goes. So it's fascinating to see. I think he's going to be a New York guy. I'd see the Yankees or Mets. And then, you know, once that decision is made, and we think it's going to be made by next Friday, once that decision is made, then what happens to Pete Alonso? What happens to Alex Bregman? Because the next tier of free agents are pretty good ball players who are all going to get nice pay raises. Not 40 million per season, but they're going to get big pay bumps. So once the first domino Soto falls, I think it opens up the logjam and other guys will start to move quick.
Well, normally that's true, you know, but we've had a lot of signings before Soto, like, you know, the Angels getting all those number 4 starters.
Yeah, but those are just guys.
Yeah, those are guys that are just kind of sweeping up. You know, it's just the Dodgers had the top payroll last year and they won the World Series.
You know, the Mets had the top payroll.
Oh.
I think the Dodgers were 3rd or 4th, but they were still,
well, yeah,
they were LA high.
They were way up there, but you know, there's been so many cases of teams in every sport putting together these superstar teams and then failing, you know, so the Dodgers figured out a way to make it work.
And they survived all the injuries. That's people lost in the equation of, I hate the Dodgers or Dave Roberts didn't do a good job or blah, 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 blah. They got the World Series ring. They had to use 29 different pitchers last season. They got the World Series ring. They used 13 different starters because of the injuries. They got the World Series ring. They had 9 major pitching surgeries alone, and they still got the World Series ring. That's phenomenal. And now you add Blake Snell to the equation.
It is mind-blowing. I mean, and we, as a Padre fan, we thought that they were on the cusp, the Dodgers, of losing, and then they flipped it and just ran the table.
Padres 1 win away at home on a bullpen day. I thought for sure Padres are going to win.
I agree.
They're going to beat the Mets, and they'll go face the Yankees, and the Yankees were eminently beatable too, and they let it get away from them. So here's the burning question for those of you who love baseball. So the Padres they're sitting there right now with a payroll of maybe 170 mil. They've not made any moves of significance. They did sign one outfielder on Thursday. Oscar Gonzalez, who once was a pretty good power hitting minor league outfielder with the Indians, or the Guardians, ran into some trouble. No, it's the Indians. As far as I'm concerned, it's the Indians. You don't like it, tough crap.
Wahoo.
Yeah, Chief Wahoo, that's right. But the Padres now have the opportunity. If you got budget space to go get a pitcher, would you want Flaherty, BUEHLER, or Sasaki? Which one of the 3 would you get? Because
Sasaki.
Yeah,
because I mean, BUEHLER, I don't know if I can count on that guy. I mean, he had a nice run on the World Series, but I'm not sure about him. Flaherty wasn't he kind of a punk during some of those games? Was chirping back at Machado.
Oh, nonstop.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I call him a red ass, but that night, that's the way he acted. But he still pitched really well. Now, is he? You know, he's not a $30 million a year guy. Maybe he's a $21 million a year guy. But he's come back from arm problems. He was tremendously popular in St. Louis. I mean, his future was ahead of him and he was doing very well. And then he got hurt. And then he went to Baltimore and he struggled. He went to Detroit and reinvented himself. And then he got traded to the Dodgers. And, you know, the Dodgers would not have been playing had it not been for a lot of the quality starts Flaherty gave him. So, but he's not a $30 million a year guy. But see, I'm speaking from a Southern California standpoint. Padres, go sign one. Angels, go sign the other two, because that would give them great credibility.
Oh, yeah. The Angels need to do something. They need a number one and to go with all those number fours. And by the way, when I say a guy, when I call him a punk, it's a funny thing. It's like I like it when guys are active and chirping and playing up all this other the nonsense around the outside the lines. I enjoy that drama. So when I call a guy a punk, what I really mean is he's a guy you hate when they're on the other team, but you'd sure love to have him on your team.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so, and that's how I felt about, you know, I'd call that, who would also punks? Jock Peterson was a punk. There's a bunch of them.
Until he got to the Giants and he was one of yours.
Yeah. And then you're like, hey, this guy ain't bad, you know? But when he was wearing those pearl necklace out in Atlanta, that was a punk move.
Tyler, thanks for being with us. Let's do a couple more here before we cap this thing off.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the NIL, and this is with a San Diego State discussion from Mark. He goes, players are not the property of coaches or schools. No need for a new owner or school to compensate an old owner or school when players decide to transfer schools. I have a better idea. Offer players multi-year NIL deals so that they are contractually bound to a school. Schools can include a buyout on a contract. If players want to bet on themselves, they don't have to sign a multi-year NIL deal.
It's novel. It's different. He, of course, is reacting to Sean Lewis's statement to me a week ago that they're going to go to the coaches' convention and say, we need to put in place a compensation package that if a Power 4 conference takes our top player from a group of 5, we get compensated. Now, we don't know what the dollar value is. That money would go into the NIL pool. We don't know whether the conference would pay it. University of Washington would pay it. The NCAA would pay it. That's all to be sorted out. But he says he's going to put that proposal up when they go to the coaches' convention. But how do you enforce it? Because every time you try to enforce something at the NCAA level, you get a lawsuit. You know, the reason we have the NIL and then we have the transfer portal, it's under the umbrella of players' rights. These players are suing for everything that they felt they should have had for years upon years upon years. The big money issue to me has really hurt the sport. I think it's soured it. It's left a bad taste in my mouth. I mean, when you got players driving better cars than coaches are driving now because of this volume of money that's being funneled. And it's all because of the court system. It's all because the NCAA did not take care of the players for decades upon decades. But somewhere along the way, it's got to stop because I think it's been very, very destructive. I think the money issue has allowed us to see the marquee Oregon States or Oregon, Ohio States. But nobody gives a damn about the bottom 2/3 of the other teams in the conference now. They've all been lost because the only people care about is seeing Alabama and Clemson or Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, et cetera. So they got to get this thing under control.
Now, coaches like Lincoln Riley are making what, like 6, 7, 10 million? 10 million.
He's making 10.
He's probably driving a better car than most of the guys on his team, right?
Yeah. I walked through that garage at San Diego State on the way to the weekly press conferences. I will tell you, I've never seen such volume of luxury cars. And those are not professors who are parking in that garage. Those are athletes.
So you seeing like Mercedes and BMW, or are you seeing like Lamborghinis and the like fancy
I've seen
cars?
some Jaguars and I've seen some real state-of-the-art SUVs.
Really?
And trucks.
Nice.
I mean, jacked up trucks.
Well, good for those kids, you know? I mean, they're getting paid.
It's not the chemistry professor's truck.
No, the chemistry professor ain't. Well, chemistry professors typically drive an Aztec. Remember that? Did you ever watch Breaking Bad?
No,
not
what
much. What a great show. It was a chemistry professor, and his car was an Aztec, which is kind of funny. The other thing I wonder, just thinking creatively, imagine if deferrals got into the NIL business.
No, stop
that
it.
would the whole thing would even get worse and more murky.
Yeah. I think within a year's time, this thing is going to be focused and handled a little bit better, whether the NCAA gets the antitrust exemption, which will allow them to take full control of this and handle it differently. The money's here to stay. It's the disproportion of the money. And, you know, it's deathly. I would not want to be a coach in a group of 5 conference. I would not want to be a coach in a 1AA school because now you're almost guaranteed if I select and coach this kid up, he's going to get taken. I mean, look at San Diego State. They had 12 transfers who went to true Division I programs, had 42 transfers in all. Sean Lewis lost all his players. And it's happening, I swear to you, every group of 5 conference school is getting rated every year. And you have a great player at Western Michigan. He's going to be in a Big Ten next year. It's just the way that the system's allowed to operate. I don't think it's good for the game.
You know, it's happening in basketball too.
Sure.
I mean, Micah Parrish at Ohio State, Lamont Butler's at Kentucky, and then who's the other one? Elijah Saunders at Virginia.
Yep.
You know, and then but yet Dutcher keeps building it, which is great.
But that's maybe the odd happenstance because it's not happening everywhere.
Right.
You keep cherry-picked, you lose your players.
The whole thing is changing, and it's weird though that even at San Diego State, the money is just so much lower than a lot of these other NIL collectives.
Oh, yeah, for the Mountain West, San Diego State's got one of the best collectives in basketball. But compare San Diego State's pool of money to Kentucky or anybody else. Like I say, those guys are driving better cars than the coaches are driving.
Now, Lamont Butler's gotten off to a good start of a season, by the way.
Very good.
Okay.
Let's do one more here.
Let's talk about the Tampa Stadium. This is with Upsox. He says, if I lived in St. Petersburg and my county raised the partial or half the money, I want the team to be named after my city. Is Tampa contributing anything to this deal? If a billionaire wants to build a castle, build it himself by securing the property and money necessary for the development and construction of the stadium.
Well, the new stadium is to be built on the other side of the bridge in St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg had committed about $318 million. Pinellas County had committed like $325 million. Then the hurricanes hit. And then the new members of city council said, whoa, we're supposed to vote on this public funding that goes into the pool, and the Rays are paying a significant amount. The Rays are paying, I want to say $1 billion themselves. It's not a free gift. But suddenly, city council in St. Petersburg said, we lost our water system in this hurricane. We have terrible infrastructure, power grid problems. We have terrible problems with roads washed out, etc. We, in good conscience, can't take taxpayer money and give it to the Tampa Bay Rays so they can get their stadium built. We got to take care of the population base. I understand that. So then Tampa Bay comes back and says, well, if you delay this vote, that's going to delay another year the construction of the stadium, and the costs are going to get more. It'll be more than a $1.6 billion stadium. And the city and county said, we're not going to vote. We're taking our money back because we got to fix everything that's wrong with the hurricane's cost here. It's a calamity beyond belief. And Tampa Bay, the Rays can't play for the next 4 years in a minor league stadium in the heat and humidity and the rain. And that's a lot what happens on the Suncoast. So I still think if I were king, I would say, okay, this has not worked in Tampa. You don't have the funding. We'll let you move. Go to Montreal or Nashville, which wants to build a stadium. So they can't play 4 years outdoors in Tampa in a minor league stadium. It's just not the union. I don't think will allow it.
The players would be melting on the field. I can't, I agree with you. I think that they may need to go to another city, and Montreal would be wonderful to get them back in. But you know what? It's interesting is, granted, we have inflation and everything's gotten more expensive over the decades, but it seems like stadiums have disproportionately gotten more expensive than the rate of inflation because they're not just a place with a bunch of seats in the field in the middle.
It's not steel, it's cement, it's the infrastructure, it's the cost.
Yeah, but then it's also so posh inside, with the tile marble floors and these really high-end restaurants and bars, and it's a whole different thing.
It's a different game. It's a big business thing right now.
Yeah.
But the landscape has also changed. Once upon a time, owners used to walk around, give me my money, build me the stadium, and give me the lease to the stadium. Well, it doesn't happen anymore. Now it's a joint situation. This Tampa thing was workable up until this point, till the hurricanes, back-to-back hurricanes, just devastated those areas. And I understand it. So we'll see where it goes. Tampa Bay's in big trouble. They're going to play next year. They're going to play outdoors. It's going to be miserable for these players.
Yeah, I don't know if it works in Tampa. All the old people watch it on TV.
They are right now. I think it'll work better in Montreal because Olympic Stadium is in the process. They're about 60% through the renovation of Olympic Stadium. So that'll be a much nicer place and a place that wants Major League Baseball back and the economics in Quebec and in Canada are different now than they were when the Expos vacated and became the Washington Nationals. Hey, listen, we thank you for being part of this podcast. Coming off a Thursday Thanksgiving holiday, going towards a great sports weekend. Our podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. We hope you'll tell all your friends what we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Thanks to the O Canada Network for joining us as they normally do. John, have a great sports weekend. It's going to be a hell of a weekend in the NFL. Big games.
Big snow games, maybe some baseball signings, and we still got basketball. Aztecs playing Saturday against Houston.
And, of course, my statement, is this Super Bowl weekend?
Yeah, that too.
Is that going to be a great game? Have yourself a great sports weekend. Thank you for joining us. Same to you on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.